Halo may have not taken center stage at this year's E3 2017 Xbox media briefing, but not all is a complete Halo fanboy letdown. New Halo Wars 2 information has surfaced, and yes, we've talked about a lot of this, and yes, the Flood are returning with a new DLC expansion coming to the game later this year. This is fine and dandy for Halo Wars 2, but we want to talk about what this may mean for the franchise going forward. So today we're going to talk about what the Flood's return could mean for Halo overall. The legendary Halo Flood have been out of the game both figuratively and literally for 10 whole years. Yes, a freaking decade without the Flood. Feel old yet? Fans have urged their desires for the evil parasite monsters to make their climactic return to the series, but until now, their calls have gone unanswered. While some people may say that this is simply a non-canon DLC for the RTS side Halo game and has nothing to do with Halo 6 or Halo moving forward, well, there are plenty of ideas to counter that. In fact, the Flood returning to Halo Wars 2 implies a Flood return to all of Halo. So let's get into it. So the first question is, how do you bring back an enemy, the Flood, that you made an entire trilogy, Halo Combat Evolved to Halo 3, focus on defeating and killing off? Doesn't that make Halo 1, 2, 3 kind of obsolete, kind of useless, like everything you did in those games were kind of pointless? I don't think so, because a lot happened because the Flood was originally there that wouldn't have happened otherwise, and we don't know the big conclusion to Halo yet, so I would say no. Secondly, they already did this with the Covenant. 343 Industries already brought the Covenant back in some form because they took a second take on what and who the Covenant was, right down to the culture, such as the Banished, such as the Storm faction. I know technically they're not the Covenant, but let's be serious, you know, basically they function as the Covenant in the gameplay, and that's what really matters. So perhaps they will do the same with the Flood, introducing new units, a new Gravemind with a very cool, wicked, charming personality, and a new reason really, and reasons why the returning of the Flood this time is important and interesting to us, the player, and of course the characters in the Halo universe. Also, how did the Flood get first introduced to Halo? Think about that for a minute. They got released on a unknown Halo ring. What did the legendary ending of Halo 5 show us? A new Halo ring. In fact, there's some theories that there was a Flood sound on the ring. I'll leave a link down to a video where I made it, a whole video just talking about that. So now that we already talked about the Flood becoming a part of the story once again, now let's talk about something that is much more meaningful to many Halo fans, the multiplayer itself. How would the Flood come back? Well, if the Flood isn't meant to return in the campaign, and another great way for the Flood to just return and for there to be less boundaries is the Flood coming into the War Games multiplayer simulation. We already saw this in Halo 4, by the way, with the Flood being playable in a sense. The Flood has already been playable if you think about it, but this is really, the game mode Infection has been a huge part of Halo for a very long time, since Halo 2, and it has been a very underutilized and underused thing about Halo. Halo itself, the Flood is a very classic thing, and Infection is still a very classic thing and is a huge part of custom games and even now multiplayer. So why not bring the Flood? If the Flood are coming back in Halo, why not bring the Flood into that Infection mode? Now, they already did this in Halo 4, but it wasn't exactly how we wanted it. We wanted the Flood to carry weapons, so this is something that they're going to have to address for sure. But imagine for a moment Flood forms that can carry the weapons that we want to use for custom games and whatnot in Forge. Imagine that also there are AIs accompanying us, AI Flood forms that are also chasing down our fellow co-op friends, and perhaps when we're eaten and destroyed by one, we turn into a part of that team in the same place. The idea is very basic, but it's something that we haven't seen. We would die and then respawn somewhere else. So why not make it where we are eaten by the flood and kind of devoured by the flood and then turn into the flood form in the same spot? It would bring up some very interesting moments where you are fighting with your friends against the flood, and then all of a sudden your friends turn against you. You turn around and the person that you were trying to defend so much has now turned into a flood form. It really does leave for some very awesome moments in gameplay, I think. So now that we already talked about basic multiplayer, now let's talk about Firefight. Firefight is a very classic, in my opinion, form of Halo multiplayer. Whether you liked ODST Firefight or Halo Reach Firefight or Halo 5 Warzone even, which isn't really Firefight, but it is strongly inspired from it, it looks like. One thing is usually certain with you guys, at least the most of you, is that you want to see the flood. I mean, aren't we, most of us, at least curious, without knowing it would play well at all, even, to see how the flood would play in Halo multiplayer and its Firefight modes? I mean, I would at least be open to seeing it happen in some way, right? I think most people would be curious to see if it works. And think about this too, there's so much buzz around zombie survival games. That is a huge part of modern video games now, is the whole zombie hunting or zombie hiding away from the zombie games. And it's just, there's so much potential, especially for Halo, a lot of untapped potential, because Halo in its flood, there's so much potential there. There's already a foundation of zombies, if you will. I don't know if the word zombie gives flood any justice. I don't know if that does it any justice, but this is its own form of zombies, and it would only make sense that Halo finally taps into that horror-loving market of gamers. So with the flood coming back in Halo Wars 2 Awakening the Nightmare, that really makes room, and it really opens up the possibility, not just talk now, it isn't just talk, it really opens up the possibility for the flood to be present in future Halo games. Now we're talking, now they're open to it, now we know they're open to it. So all of this really does suggest that 343 Industries and other partners already know that there is a huge craving for the flood, and that opens up the possibility for a flood firefight. And this isn't the first time that Halo fans have wanted a flood firefight. No, we've been asking for this for a very, very long time. We've been asking for this since the very first time that we saw the flood. This is something that Halo fans have craved for almost 2 decades. So one of the biggest things that we could expect to see is just flood firefight in Halo. I think that's the next step, because we've already seen that in Halo Wars 2 Awakening the Nightmare. Now think about it, imagine it for a moment, okay? Random swarms attacking you from all angles, co-op gameplay, building barricades. We've already seen this in the leaked but cancelled Halo Mega Bloks game and its version of Firefight, which did only involve the Covenant, but there was turrets, there was mine building, and there was a system of creating defenses, which we've already even seen in the gameplay of Awakening the Nightmare, so this all suggests that barricades, setting up defenses, trying to survive the flood is a theme that they're open to, and have already made a huge DLC expansion for a massive installment of Halo Wars 2. So they're already open. Alright, this is great news. So going back to Warzone for just a moment, what about Warzone? Alright, if Halo 6 has Warzone, the flood needs to be in it. This is a duh kind of thing. But it also suggests if Rex return, then of course flood-based Rex would be really, really cool. Let's say you open a pack and bam, a level 2 Reg card that summons a swarm of flood infection and basic combat forms to fight for you and your team on the battlefield. Just an idea, alright? A lot of this video has been rambling, but effective rambling. A more practical solution to bringing the flood into Warzone would probably be like some off-limit areas that the player would open or destroy that would release the flood into the match, maybe to fight for them, or perhaps even the most basic idea that you would get at the very first moment of thinking of the flood in Warzone is to have Warzone flood units, is to have a flood boss like the Warden, for example, Very, very cool ideas, very basic, but just a starting point of all the speculation and theories about Flood returning to Halo. I have been covering Halo for about 6 years now, more than 6 years, and I have to say that what they're doing with Halo 6 isn't something I have seen up to this point. This is new. They're taking a much more quiet and stealthy approach, and of course, with the Flood being in Halo Wars 2, this could only be a foreshadowing of potentially a Flood return to all of Halo, and also in Halo 6. I mean, even if you think about it from a lore point of view, which we've discussed many times, is that the Flood seems to be the only kind of faction, only kind of unit or entity in Halo that could take on Cortana at this point. Cortana has the galaxy, as it looks like at the end of Halo 5 and Halo Wars 2, she has the galaxy by its nutsack, alright? The Flood kind of needs to return, and with the Flood in its return to Halo Wars 2 being canon, and by that I mean it's a part of the story, this isn't just a fun-lived expansion pack, the Flood could make a legitimate return to Halo as it already has with all this news. So this could mean much more than just some DLC expansion pack. This could mean a full-on return of the Flood to the Halo series, which would of course put everything in turmoil. This would be a very exciting turn for the Halo galaxy, and of course bring up some very exciting topics to discuss, which it already has. So guys, this video really is just me rambling and also some of Jacob's thoughts too, so please drop this video a like if you ended up enjoying, and subscribe here on HaloFollower for all your Halo news and information up to Halo 6's release date, as well as Halo Wars 2's new DLC involving the Flood. And of course, hashtag Halo Club your Halo comments if you have any thoughts about the Flood returning, because again, this is just the foundation of what we're going to be talking about for the next few months anyway, with the Flood and being in Halo now once again. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Chris is out. Peace.